And everyone, I would like to reconvene today's Board of County Commissioners meeting. We are here for this afternoon's public hearings. Is there anyone who would like to make a motion to accept?
Move to approve, accept.
Second.
Publications.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Our rules for this afternoon's public hearings are as follows. This is the outline of how this afternoon will go. Our staff is going to present each item for consideration with a staff recommendation. The board will have an opportunity to then ask questions of staff when presentations have finished. The applicant will have an opportunity to make a presentation, and the board will then have a chance to ask questions once the presenter has finished. Members of the public who are interested in speaking either for or against an item, if you would please fill out one of the yellow forms that is out in the lobby, if you would like to speak and address the board. Indicate the number, the agenda item number that you would like to talk about and whether you are for or against. If you don't want to speak, but you just want your comments read for the record, you can fill out the green form that is out in the lobby. Speakers, when you come up to speak, should state your name and address clearly for the record and whether you are for or against the item. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to speak unless you're the official spokesperson for an HOA or a legally organized group, and then they will be given 6 minutes. If a board member has questions regarding the speaker's comments, an opportunity will be given once the speaker's time has expired. In accordance with the operating policies and procedures of the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners, Section 2.175, Public Participation Before the Board, speakers shall limit their comments to the subject being considered by the board. All public comments shall avoid personal attacks, abusive language, and redundancy. Disrespectful, rude, irrelevant, or slanderous remarks or disruptive behavior may subject the individual to removal from the board chambers. The chairman may curtail repetitious comments. The clerk's office is required to retain any documents, photographs, or drawings that you present to the board, so if you show it to us, be prepared to leave it with the clerk. Once all speakers have been heard, the applicant will have an opportunity for rebuttal if necessary, and then I will remember to close the public hearing, or Commissioner Constantine will remind me to close the public hearing and put the matter in the hands of the commission. He's always good like that, and I appreciate it. Following a motion and a second, there will be board discussion and a vote, and commissioners who do not cast objecting votes will have been considered to have voted in support of the motion. All of the items this afternoon are quasi-judicial hearings. And so while the board welcomes comments from everyone interested in this proceeding, Florida law requires that the board's decision and a quasi-judicial action be supported by competent, substantial evidence presented to the board during the hearing of the application. Competent, substantial evidence is such evidence as a reasonable mind would accept as adequate to support a conclusion. There must be a factual basis in the record to support opinion testimony from both expert and non-expert witnesses. Persons presenting testimony may rely on factual information that they present, that is presented by a county staff member, that the applicant presented, or on factual information included in the county staff report to support their testimony. All persons who present written materials to the board for consideration must ensure that you have another copy to be given to the clerk as a part of the public record in the proceedings and official minutes. Has any commissioner received any oral or written communication regarding the quasi-judicial items? If so, please disclose the substance of the communication and identify the person making the communication. Commissioner Herr?
I have not, and that has been, record of that has been submitted.
Madam Chairman, I have some ex parte communication, and I just want to submit it for the record.
Okay. Commissioner Zembauer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nothing, and that's been submitted accordingly electronically. Thank you.
Okay.
Again, nothing,
Okay.
surprisingly, the three events.
Yep. I have one item, item number 21, the Atlantic Drive. I had a meeting back in June of 2022 with the applicant, and that's been submitted to the clerk for the record.
Excuse
Yes,
me, I'm
Commissioner
sorry.
Constantine.
You brought something up. If you've had a meeting with somebody many months ago on something, is that something that you need to report also?
The ex parte is when there's a pending matter. So, I mean, if it was before the application, not necessarily.
That is what, okay, yes, it was before they were just coming to ask some questions about their idea, but it wasn't pending.
Correct.
So I did not put in that, Thank you. When you said that, I said, I better ask.
All right, well, out of an abundance of caution, I figured I would just disclose it.
More is better than less.
Okay. The items that we have today, number 20, 21, and 22. Item number 21, I believe the applicants are running a little bit behind. And so I am going to make the decision to move item 21 to item number 22 to give them time to get here, because we know how things can go. So starting with item number 20, El Caserio rezone. Our project manager is Annie Silloway.
Hi, good afternoon. Annie Silloway, Development Services, Senior Planner. This request is for a rezone from A1 Agriculture to R1 AA Single Family Dwelling for approximately 9-lot single-family residential subdivision on approximately 6.47 acres, located on Old Lockwood Road, approximately 558 feet south of Fawn Run. The original request for rezone was from A1 Agriculture to R1A, single-family dwelling, but on April 5th, 2023, the Planning Commission voted 5-1 to deny the Board of County Commissioners adopt the ordinance enacting a rezone from A1 Agriculture to R1A, single-family dwelling. During discussion, the Planning and Zoning Commission noted that the rezone to R1 AA would be more compatible with the surrounding area, and the applicant modified the request from R1A to R1 AA following the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. The applicant is proposing approximately 9 lots, and there is an existing house on the subject site that will remain as part of the 9-lot subdivision. Seminole County will be the service provider for water and sewer. There is an existing 6-inch sanitary sewer pipe running along the east side of Old Lockwood Road. However, Environmental Services has determined there is not sufficient sanitary sewer capacity in the county's downstream systems for the subject property to develop, and the county is unable to provide capacity to sanitary sewer at this time. Until the county can increase the downstream capacity, no proposed development can be approved in this service area. However, the applicant can proceed with the rezone and develop with the intent to connect to the sanitary sewer. But the applicant will not be issued certificate of occupancies until downstream capacity becomes available. The applicant has been put on notice of the sewer capacity issues. Environmental Services currently has a project underway to add downstream capacity, and the county should have sufficient capacity once the project is complete. Staff finds the request is consistent with the Seminole County Land Development Code in the surrounding area. There is an existing development directly to the north of the subject site, Hampton Estates, that has 90-foot width lots. There was a community meeting that took place on January 12th, and 6 people attended. So staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners adopt the proposed ordinance enacting a rezone from A1 Agriculture to R1 AA single-family dwelling for 6.47 acres located on Old Lockwood Road, approximately 558 feet south of Fawn Run. And that concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you. Is the applicant here, and do they wish to make a presentation?
Hi, good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Jeremy Anderson. I'm with at 4016 Edgewater Drive. We're with Common Oak Engineering. I'm a licensed professional engineer licensed here in the state of Florida, and I'm here today on behalf of the applicant, who's the owner of the property as well, Mr. Isupura. I've read the staff report, and I'd like to thank Ms. Silloway and the staff for helping us to get to this point. And I don't have anything to add to that staff report at this time, but I'm here to answer any questions related to the request. So.
Any questions for the applicant? No? All right, thank you. We'll call you back up if we have any more questions. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak? Okay, if you would start with the first one, Ms. Beach.
First name is Andrew, last name is... There you go.
And is there another speaker for this item?
Anthony Manella.
Okay, Mr. Manella, if you would like to go ahead and make your way to this side of the room, and then as soon as this gentleman is done, it will be your turn to speak.
Andrew Verstrat, 2342 Brickell Place in Hampton Estates. Good day, Chairman Lockhart and honored commissioners. While I applaud the applicant in changing their rezone request to R1AA, I am still concerned the applicant is not presenting a plot plan or PD to go along with this rezoning request, as recently required with Red Ember Estates on Old Lockwood as well. Because the applicant is not presenting a PD plot plan, I request that the rezone be denied until all other properties that, due to all other properties along the Econ Wilderness area are currently zoned A1, and until such time we could see a subdivision and understand the impacts. Alternatively, should the Board of County Commissioners consider approving a request to R1AA, I do request a stipulation of a minimum dwelling size of 2,300 square feet. Can you go to slide 2, please? R1AA requires 1,300 square feet minimum. However, following the County Commission Land Development Code Section 38.207, you're allowed to adjust the minimum dwelling size in accordance with, to maintain, to follow along with, as it reads, to the extent at which increased dwelling unit size is more compatible with existing dwelling units on adjacent parcels, and the extent at which the increased dwelling unit size provides a transition from adjacent larger units through the proposed development site to existing smaller units for land zone to permit smaller units. Currently, can you go to slide 3, please? So, currently, Hampton Estates, the minimum home size in Hampton Estates is currently 3,063 square feet. The development order for Hampton Estates was a minimum of 2,100 square feet. The Econ Wilderness area has a single home dwelling size of 960 square feet on it. 2,300 square feet is roughly in between what we have. Hampton Estates' average size also exceeds 4,100 square feet. Having numerous 1,300 square foot size homes could affect our property values should the approval be allowed as is. Thank you for your consideration and protecting our Econ Wilderness area.
Any questions for? All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Manella?
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Anthony Manella. I reside at 2100 Hestia Loop, Oviedo, Florida, which is the CCRC at Legacy Point at UCF, which is directly across the Econ Wilderness area and on the north side across the proposed site that we are considering today. I have no, well, I am not opposed to the R1AA designation for that particular area, since it does fall within the county's long-term plan management. My main concern, and I do share also my neighbor's concerns about the eventual plan of that particular subdivision, my main concern is the Econ Wilderness area, and what will this mean to that area's environment. Specifically on the proposed site, there is an existing wetland, there is an existing pond, and I imagine there ought to be made some decisions about where the road will go to access those homes, as well what type of retention ponds may have to be built, and where the stormwater will flow into. Will it go into the Econ River or whatever? So those are my concerns, and I was wondering at what point during the planning stage for that particular when that particular plan comes along, will we as citizens have input? Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more speaker for this item. Mr. Rasad?
Good afternoon. I live at 3665 Kershaw Place, Oviedo, Florida, basically north of Hampton Estate in a small estate, Whitetail Run. I may not even take 3 minutes, but I think Andrew went into more detail. This is a 6.47 acre lot. From agriculture to rezoning it to R1AA, I mean, you can easily assume, I mean, that it's going to have 8 or 9 establishments on this small acreage. Most of that area, if you look behind this, first of all, it's next to Eco River Park, I mean, which is, as we know, I mean, it's sensitive area, I mean, and then around most of these 5 or 6 acre lots, they're all agriculture zoned. So there is a lot of, I would say, green area or preserved area, I mean, accordingly, I mean, that you see. For example, with reference to Hampton in Whitetail Run, we are R1 AA, I believe. But then if you look at the overall estate, almost 45 to 50% is reserved for preservation, actually. So I'm kind of a bit concerned that small acreage of this size, if they're turned into more houses on these small lots, they'll end up exactly what Ms. Indicated over here, that it's going to cause pretty much heavy load, not only on the drainage or the supports or utility systems, but even schools, I mean, let alone the surrounding areas. I mean. So that's what I wanted to bring it up to your attention. I mean, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are those all of the speakers? All right.
For this item.
Thank you very much. Would the applicant like to address any of the comments that were made?
Sure, yeah. Jeremy Anderson, once again, with Common Oak Engineering. The concerns related to like concurrency, schools, and water and sewer utilities, the staff already mentioned that there's not currently adequate service available now. We acknowledge that. We certainly intend to meet the land development regulations in regard to meeting concurrency from traffic, schools, water and sewer, and so forth. And in regard to so I guess that's our intent, is to meet the land development regulations, and we did modify our request as a result of the community's concern at the last hearing, which wanted wider lots. The way that the geometry of the subject lot is that you can only have one row of homes, so it's a 90-foot wide lot, and they're going to be quite deep. So I did a quick math, and it's over a third of an acre for sure. So per lot at the minimum. So anyway, any questions? Again, I'm happy to answer those.
Madam Chair, I have a couple questions for the applicant and then also for staff, if you don't mind, Madam Chairman.
Absolutely.
First of all, the wetlands. Is your intent to mitigate those wetlands or to keep them intact?
There's a couple of unique features. It's a beautiful piece of property. The applicant has owned the property for a while now. They love the existing home. It's actually on a pond. They intend to keep that pond, so a portion of that is not necessarily the water body portion of the pond, but around it is going to be a wetland, which they intend to keep some of that. We have not been released on to do any design yet. The staff, in the staff report, you'll find also that due to the fact that it's of the limitation of like a stormwater outfall, they're requiring a 25-year, 24-hour storm to be held on site. So that means it's going to be a larger pond. So we might not even be able to get the number of homes that the density would otherwise allow. So I apologize, but I don't have a specific answer to that request right now, or that question.
Okay. The remaining questions for staff, if you don't mind. Annie, can you come to the podium, please? Thank you, sir. In your initial comments, you talked about the sanitary and used the word that after some additional infrastructure is put in, there shall be. Is it shall or will have capacity? It will
I would say shall have capacity.
So there will be capacity?
There will be capacity. There should be capacity,
So
yes, once they complete the project.
Okay, but they won't start the project unless there is capacity, correct?
Are you talking about developing?
Sanitary.
From my understanding, they've already started correcting the problem, environmental services.
Well, I understand that, but since you've noted that there is limited capacity of the sanitary system, they will not be able to start this project until there is additional capacity for them to tie into, correct?
Well, they can start developing the site.
Okay, let me rephrase it. They won't get a CO until they
Correct.
connect to the
Yes.
sanitary, and until there is additional capacity, they won't be able to connect to it, correct?
That's correct,
All right,
yes.
just want to make sure.
Okay,
They're doing straight zoning, correct?
that is correct.
So with straight zoning, they have to just follow the codes. There's no additional way to put additional requirements about square footage of houses.
That's correct. There is no development order to go
There's no
along with this.
DO.
No, sir.
Not like the surrounding areas, they went PD.
Actually, the property to the north, Hampton Estates, is not a PD.
Okay.
It's straight zoning. It's R1AA. Also, we've got Ellingsworth that is up to the northwest. That's R1A. That doesn't have a development order either. But you've got Whitetail that is a PD. That is north of Hampton Estates.
But the point I'm trying to make is that if they're doing straight zoning, there's no additional requirements we can put on them, only what they follow in the land development code and our existing codes.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any additional questions from board members?
What the applicant said, that because of the wetlands, that there is a very strong possibility that 9 units is not possible. on
It
that.
may not be. It's just, it has not been fully engineered yet, and the applicant is not sure on whether they want to mitigate the wetlands. So with engineering and keeping wetlands or not keeping wetlands, at this point, we don't know how many lots. And they may not be able to get 9 lots out of it when you start, having to do engineering of roads and curbs and for the development. Was that your question?
Then I'm confused. So you're saying that they could go in and, when you say mitigate wetlands so close to the econ, what does that incur? Does that mean not, buying mitigation banks or
That would be-
filling in wetlands there? And would that be engineering? Is that a real possibility because of the, just because being near the econ, that would be almost, I can't imagine it not harming the econ and the wilderness area if they decided to eliminate the wetlands and buy mitigation banks somewhere else. So when you're saying mitigate wetlands, what do you assume it means? Or what by our code does that mean in this area?
To fill in wetlands.
Commissioner Herr, and then I think maybe if there's an opportunity to clarify, because what I heard was that the applicant was actually going to create more capacity.
That's
So-
correct.
Right,
Yeah.
so Commissioner Herr and then
I just
Commissioner
want to
Zem.
make sure that we
I
got it on the
know, I
record.
just want to make sure we're getting the right terminology being used. Commissioner Herr and then Commissioner Zembauer.
I actually think there was a question asked by one of the citizen speakers that's really important, and that is to explain where we are in the process and to understand whether further input will be allowed at the point that they start to do the engineering work, et cetera. And so I'm going to let a staff member answer that question as succinctly and clearly as possible, given that it's straight zoning.
Yes.
And please explain the difference between a PD, planned development, because we love to use acronyms,
I know.
and straight zoning and the implications for the public.
Okay. So a PD is what we call a plan development, and it starts out with a master development plan, and that basically starts the entitlements of the project, as we call a bubble plan. In a development order, or a DO, as Commissioner Delary stated, goes along with that master development plan. So that's the start of the PD. And then after that, if it gets approved by the board, the second stage of the PD is through a final development plan, or PSP and final development plan. A lot of times our applicants will submit both at the same time. The PSP would need to be approved as a technical review item through the Planning and Zoning Commission, or the Planning Commission. That would have a DCA. The final development plan would have a developer's commitment agreement.
You're doing wonderfully, but she is standing right there.
And then if that gets approved and they meet all their comments, then they would go to final engineering and final plat. And final engineering is reviewed by staff, as well as the final
So
plat.
that's a PD.
So that's a PD. As far as the
This one is a,
It's a rezone, it's a straight rezone. They start with the rezone and establish entitlements based off the land development code. So this one is R1AA. After that is the preliminary subdivision plan, or as we call it, a PSP. And they would, of course, need to get that approved as a technical review item through the Planning and Zoning Commission. If that gets approved as a technical review item, we would move on to final engineering. That is reviewed by staff. Once that has been completed and all comments have been met, we move on to final plat.
So no further opportunity for input here, but further opportunity for input at the planning and zoning meeting.
It's a technical review item. The public can speak on it, but at that point, there's no real changes. Yeah.
So this is it.
Stated another way, in the straight zoning, the R1AA, all the standards are established in our zoning code. So the lot width, lot depth, in all of those standards are included. So nothing is left to chance. You have to meet the standards that are in the code for the R1A.
But the standards are not a 2,300 square foot home.
No.
These are the minimum standards, so they can always go larger.
And then alternatively, in a PD, there are no standards, so that's why the development order is issued, because all of the standards are set in accordance with the PD.
Thank you.
That was very good clarification on everyone's part. I do want to make sure that Commissioner Zembauer gets a chance to ask his question. This may all dovetail.
It does. I was just going to note, this is a straight zoning. We're talking about zoning here.
Right.
We're not talking about design of homes, square footage of homes. They're going to have to meet the open space. They've got to meet the St. Johns River requirements. They got to meet the econ protection ordinance. Staff's charged with overseeing that. They're entitled to their future land use. This is a rezone.
It's just a rezone, it's
That's
not a
right.
future land use amendment. The LDR, the low-density residential future land use is already established.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
All right.
same.
Just one more thing. And
Commissioner
with that, straight zoning talks about maximums. And so even though they're asking for 9 lots, 1 is existing, so that means they're going to be putting, maximum they could put in is 8 additional if they keep the existing home, which they're committed that they're keeping the existing home. And it's going to be up to them and their engineers on how to fit that in.
Correct.
Per
They would
our-
have to
per
develop
our-
around it.
Per our code.
Yes, sir.
There's no variances asked. At this time, there's no variances.
At this time, no. There's no variance asked. No, sir.
And after they do their engineering, quite frankly, they may not be able to get the house count that they're asking
Right.
for.
That's
They may get half of that.
Right.
Correct.
I would like, if I could ask the applicant to clarify whether or not you plan to mitigate wetlands, because I think that would be important for us to go ahead, since that was brought up. Let's go ahead and clarify that.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I've been speaking with the owner about this for a while now, and his intent is to keep at least a portion of the existing wetlands. Depending on how everything looks, we haven't received geotechnical reports. We don't have any design parameters whatsoever. We do know that we have the Econo-Lahatchie River protection criteria that we need to meet, as well as St. John's, the land development regulations with the county as well. So we intend to meet all of those requirements. We do think that we may have to impact some of the wetland with mitigation, but our intention is not to impact all of it, which is consistent with the Hampton Estates to the north, as well as White Tail Run, or whatever it's called. Like, all of them have had some impacts to the wetlands. They were mitigated per land development regulations and state and federal standards now, because wetland impacts are now governed by the federal government as well. So, yeah, we have a lot of, different agencies to make happy with that.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other public comment forms? No?
Not for this item, no, ma'am.
Okay, well, then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Does the board wish to?
Mr. Valari.
Madam Chairman, I have a motion I'd like to make if
Okay.
appropriate. Being that this is straight zoning, and it does not have a development order or DO, it's not a PD, plan development, it's straight zoning, I'd like to make a motion to adopt an ordinance enacting a rezone from agricultural A1 to R1AA, single-family dwellings for 6.47 acres located on Old Lockwood Road, approximately 558 feet south of Fawn Run, as presented here in our packet here today.
Second, with an amendment, if the motioner will consider an amendment not to impact any existing wetlands.
I'd like to get some clarification from the attorney first, if I may. Paul, am I allowed to do that because this is straight zoning?
The issue of wetland impact is really not before you at the time of this rezoning. Again, it is for a straight rezoning to the R1AA.
I understand that, but can that be put into the motion?
Yes.
There should not be any conditions attached to the rezoning ordinance.
So I'm asking the question. Okay. The motion stands.
Seconder will agree, no amendment.
Okay, so there's a motion by Commissioner Jolari, second by Commissioner Zembauer. Any further discussion? The only thing I would say is I haven't seen anyone in this community build a 1,300 square foot home in a long time, not probably for what they're going to be paying for the price of this land. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you very much. Our next item.
Madam Chair, just a question to Mr. Chipoff, based upon the amendment that was done, and I think that it wasn't, extraordinary to ask for that, and I don't know what whether the motioner would have accepted it or not, but, when we get into that point of wetlands, are you saying that we have to rely solely on, what our code says right now when it comes to straight zoning, and we cannot put, a condition of, even in that sensitive area, anything from a standpoint of protection of the wetlands? And I'm not trying to be difficult here. I'm just trying to find out what our parameters are when it comes to that straight zoning.
If the applicant is choosing to go straight zoning, yes. The zoning is the application of which sections of the code will apply, and sets the parameters of the lot size, et cetera. The wetlands are more of a site design issue and are really covered under the site planning and other sections of the code, but not under the zoning portion of the code.
So this commission has absolutely zero authority when it comes to telling them that they cannot impact the wetlands if it's straight zoning.
They can impact the wetlands, but through your previous actions, you have the econ protection ordinance, which requires certain standards be met and certain mitigations be held. And then there's also the various state and federal requirements for mitigating impacted wetlands.
I think Ms. Hammack
And
has
I don't,
something.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I just want to make sure that Ms. Hammack has an opportunity to respond to.
Okay, I just want to finish one last question then to the attorney. But there is nothing that tells us we cannot, from this dais, ask the applicant to agree not to impact the wetlands, even in straight zoning.
You're making me uncomfortable as an attorney to answer that question.
Well, there's a shocker.
Okay, but I want, I think that's a legitimate question, because, I wanted to know whether Mr. Zimbauer or myself said,
I'm going to go first, if you don't mind.
I'm sorry?
Just
I just could say, sir, this is what your plan is. Could you tell us whether you could not impact the wetlands? It's just a question, I want to know an answer.
The defensibility of your actions and your zoning approval could be called into question if you put that condition
Thank
on
you.
there.
That's what I want to know.
Madam
Okay.
Chairman?
Well, wait just a moment. If we could, I really would like to have Ms. Hammack address that situation so we can deal with that, and then we'll move to Commissioner Jolari.
For the record, Rebecca Hammack, Development Services Director. I just wanted to provide a little bit additional information related to Mr. Chipock's statements. As he said, we do have the econ protection regulations in the code, which will apply to this property, which do not allow wetland impacts within 1,100 feet of the econ. So there is protection for wetlands that are close to the econ. In addition, if the wetlands are preserved, there is an enhanced buffer requirement. The upland buffer is a wider buffer. And then, of course, whether he is able to impact the wetlands will depend on the St. Johns River Water Management District and whether they allow the impacts.
Very helpful. Commissioner Delary.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And it's one of the reasons why I led off with that question about, can we talk about the wetlands when I first started speaking. I'm all in favor of protecting the wetlands, but I've also spoken to staff and the attorney in quite amount of detail prior to this regarding straight zoning, and Mr. Chipak, as well as Ms. Hammack, basically informed me that this is straight zoning. We have to rely on the ordinances in place and the codes that are in place today, and we cannot put any additional requirements on this property if they're doing straight zoning. So that's when Commissioner Zimbaugh made that comment. I needed to ask Mr. Chipak, is that allowed? Because we had that conversation in quite
Detail.
And I spoke to him
Commissioner
about.
Zembauer is next, and then Commissioner Constantine.
So, to the county attorney, so playing the devil's advocate, they have Ag 1 right now. Their future land use is what?
Low-density residential.
R1AA, they're entitled, correct?
If I'm understanding the question correctly, their future land use is low-density residential.
Yeah.
Correct.
So they're
Okay.
they're entitled to ask for a rezoning of a land use that would give them up to 4 units an acre.
Understood.
Okay,
They're already entitled to that.
yes.
So my question is, based on your answer, if they're entitled to that under the code, then the obvious question is, why are we even here talking about it? If they have zoning, they're entitled to go to low density under our comp plan.
They're entitled to ask, okay? They're entitled to ask. But again, you have the discretion in your approvals based on a variety of factors, including timing. Yes, they're entitled to go up to 4 units an acre, but maybe not necessarily today. If this is an outlying area, for example, this is an outlying area where there's no other development, it may be premature. So you would say, no, we're not going to rezone it at this time because we don't have the infrastructure out there. And that would be a legitimate basis for denial of the
Understood.
rezoning. But within we do have the chart that is part of the comprehensive plan that shows the land use designations and then the rezonings that fit within that land use designation. So you do have discretion. They originally, if you recall, they asked for R1A in this, which is a bit more intense than the
Correct.
R1AA. P&Z said, no, we're not going to recommend that, but we would
Understood.
recommend R1AA.
Right.
The applicant has subsequently amended his request for the less dense intensity on this particular rezoning.
Right.
So you still, again, based on the various factors, you always have the right to approve or deny, as long as it is supported by competent substantial evidence.
Commissioner Constantine, and then we'll move on to our next item.
Thank you. And I think it would have been helpful because, this is a sensitive area. It is on the Econ Wilderness Preserve. Citizens don't know all of the protections, and we've just shown, especially when it comes to sensitive area like this, we don't know all of the protections. That it might have been, what Ms. Hammack said at the end made me feel a lot more comfortable with the final decision. Not that I didn't understand that they had the right to ask for it or anything, but with all those protections. So maybe as part of the presentation, that would have been helpful to put in. Whether you do it, they do it, it doesn't matter. That's all I was saying.
All right, thank you.
It would help the citizens.
Anything else related to process moving forward? I'm sure we'll be able to take up with the county manager later on, but it was a good opportunity for dialogue. We're going to move to item number 22.
Going to call the vote?
We already did.
We
did. We
did.
voted
We
5-0.
did, and then after we voted, Commissioner Constantine wanted to ask a question for clarification,
That's
and
right.
so we did that.
Gotcha.
Item number 22, East State Road 436 rezone. Mr. Robinson.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Doug Robinson with Planning and Development. So this is a straight zone with no wetlands.
Touche.
The applicant is requesting a rezone from OP office to C1 commercial for a portion of their existing commercial site. And that is to continue the restaurant use that's currently on the site. However, they'd like to reinstate the drive-through that used to be on the site. The restaurant was originally built with a drive-through. I believe it was a Dunkin' Donuts. It was converted to a Japanese restaurant in 2003, and that's recently closed. And so they're looking to continue the restaurant use and reopen the existing drive-through window. The property currently has commercial future land use covering the entire site. However, you can see on the right side of the map that the pink is showing the OP office area, that there's currently no structure on that portion of the property. It just happens to have split zoning. So this is, in some ways, a cleanup of the zoning not really matching the property boundaries. As I said, the commercial future land use does allow the use. As far as utilities go, it's already connected to water and sewer. They will have to come back in for a site plan. We understand from the applicant they really want to continue the structure as it stands today and not expand it. Of course, they're going to have to be brought up to code on any menu boards and anything related to the signage and menu boards. So they'll have to go through the site plan process, which will allow us an opportunity to review the buffers again. There's a pretty generous buffer on the west side of the property currently, with also a fence that's on the subject property's eastern edge of that buffer. That buffer is approximately 40 to 50 feet wide currently. And then on the south side of the property, the existing structure is sitting about 120 feet in from that line, so it's north of the southern property boundary where the structure sits today. I think I have an aerial done. Oh, it's back there. Thank you. Yeah, so you can see on the aerial view, the existing structure sits kind of generally in the northeast corner of the property, and along the western edge and southern edge is pretty heavily landscape buffer today. So staff finds the proposed C1 zoning classification compatible with the surrounding development in the area and is consistent with both the allowable use and the intensity provisions of the commercial future land use designation. There was a community meeting held. There were no attendees. The Planning and Zoning Commission also heard this item on April 5th agenda and voted unanimously to approve. So with that, staff recommends, let's see, push the button here. Staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners adopt the ordinance enacting a rezone from OP office to C1 retail commercial for a portion of an existing commercial site on approximately 0.9 acre located on the south side of East State Road 436, just east of Avery Lane. And I'm here to answer any questions you have. That concludes my presentation.
Great. Thank you, Doug. Any questions for staff at this time? Is the applicant here, and do you wish to make a presentation? You could also just say I concur with staff's recommendation. No. Okay, got
Doesn't
it.
concur
Nope.
with it?
Nope. He saw what happened to the last one. He's like, nope, I'm out.
Last one
Nope.
did that on as soon as we voted. Didn't wait around for the discussion.
Do we have any members of the public here who would wish to speak?
Not for this item.
Okay. Commissioners, Commissioner Constantine?
Thank you. So I was going to ask the applicant, but he doesn't want to speak, so I'll ask the staff. It's okay. I don't see anything on here asking for the reopening of the drive-through. Is that automatic by the rezoning?
That's sort of what triggered us coming in for the rezoning. We were concerned about maintaining that, any impacts to the west with those single-family homes and offices located to the west. So having that split zoning, we looked at this rezoning as an opportunity to bring it to a public hearing and have anybody voice any concerns about opening the drive-through.
Okay, so automatically then, by the rezoning, they will be able to reopen the drive-through?
That is correct.
And there is no access, as I saw by the map, to the interior and the homes behind it, as there's been some problems along that 436 area, Balmy Beach and others, about getting back into the community. There is no access, I see from that, just correct?
Currently, there's no access, and we have not discussed any proposed access or connections as well.
And this is the applicant, this is the owner's request or the restaurant's request?
To open the drive-through is the applicant's request.
So he can go and sell it better or
I believe I could let him speak.
No, I mean,
but
the thing I was saying is,
continue restaurant.
there is no tenant currently that you have available. You don't have a tenant available.
He owns
Oh,
his own
okay.
restaurant.
Thank you. All right, that's all the questions I have.
All right, with no public here wishing to speak, we'll close public comment.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. No further questions of staff. I'll look for a motion.
Yes, Commissioner, thank you very much. And I was trying to get the applicant the opportunity to let us know all of his new beautiful restaurant, and that's what I was trying to get at, because it does sound like it's going to be not a chain, it's going to be his own restaurant. But since he didn't take that opportunity for free advertisement, I will recommend to the Board of County Commissioners adopt the ordinance enacting the rezone of OP to C1 for .90 acres located on the south side of 436 and the east side of Avery Lane.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Constantine, second by Commissioner Herr. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All
We
right.
look forward to the opening.
So item number 21, we will take up now. It is the Atlantic Drive Small Scale Future Land Use Map Amendment, and again, the project manager is Annie Silloway.
Good afternoon again. Annie Silloway, Development Services Senior Planner. This request is for a small-scale future land use map amendment from industrial to planned development and a rezone from M1 industrial to PD planned development for a proposed self-storage development on approximately 1.42 acres located on the southwest corner of Atlantic Drive and US Highway 1792. The applicant is requesting a small-scale future land use map amendment and rezone order to develop the subject property as a self-storage facility with a maximum floor area of 1.45 and a gross floor area of 89,481 square feet and a maximum height of 45 feet. The subject property consists of one parcel where the Little 500 go-kart track previously operated. There is an existing billboard on the southeast corner of the site, which will remain, and the proposed building will be built to maintain clear visibility of the existing billboard that is shown on the master development plan. The subject property's current industrial future land use designation reflects the trend of development at the time the future land use map was originally adopted in 1977. The intent of the industrial future land use designation is to provide appropriate locations for a variety of heavy commercial and industrial land uses oriented towards wholesale distribution, storage, manufacturing, and other industrial uses. Although the subject property is located within the centers and corridors overlay, staff finds that the proposed amendment is in keeping with the trend of development in the area and compatible with the surrounding land uses. The property's small size acreage presents a few challenges regarding land development code requirements related to landscape buffers, setbacks, and floor area ratio. The applicant has agreed to the following site conditions designs in order to mitigate any impacts to the surrounding uses and properties. The first is outdoor storage will be prohibited, which is a condition in the development order. The building will include architectural trim design on portions of the parapet as shown on the architectural renderings submitted by the applicant and will be placed in the development order as Exhibit C. Landscape hedges will shield the air conditioning units from the public right-of-way. 8 out of the 10 parking spaces on site will utilize permeable paving surfaces, and extra landscaping will be provided in the pond area outside of the 25-foot landscape buffer along the east portion of the site. And entrance bay doors to access the storage units will not be visible from State Road 1792 and will only be facing Atlantic Drive. And lastly, electronic vehicle car charging stations will be provided for 2 parking spaces for the site on pervious pavement. The applicant for the proposed site is providing 10 parking spaces for the Excuse me, I'm sorry, I skipped something. The applicant is varying from the off-street parking requirements, and the applicant for the proposed site is providing 10 parking spaces for the 89,481 square foot building. The height of the building from grade to the top of the roof is 40 feet, and to the top of the parapet will be a maximum of 45 feet in height. The site is located in the City of Altamont Springs Water Service Area, but is located outside of the City of Altamont Springs Sanitary Sewer Service Area, and by default is within the county's Sanitary Sewer Service Area. Therefore, county utilities is the best option to provide both services. Water and sewer capacity is available from the county to serve the proposed development. The City of Altamont Springs has no objection to the county providing unified service to the site and has provided a letter to the applicant to that effect. There is an existing city-owned 6-inch water main located in a public utility easement that runs through the property, and the utility easement and water main will be relocated to the west side of the subject property at the time of final engineering, and the City of Altamont Springs has agreed to the relocation of the water main. A community meeting was held on October 10th, 2022, and there was no attendance for the meeting. Also, there are no wetlands or floodplain on this site. On April 5th, 2023, the Planning and Zoning Commission met and voted unanimously to recommend the Board of County Commissioners adopt the proposed ordinance enacting a small-scale future land use map amendment from industrial to planned development, and adopt the ordinance enacting a rezone from M1 industrial to PD plan development, and approve the associated development order and master development plan for approximately 1.42 acres located on the southwest corner of Atlantic Drive and US Highway 1792. So staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners adopt the proposed ordinance enacting a small-scale future land use map amendment from industrial to planned development, and adopt the ordinance enacting a rezone from M1 industrial to PD plan development, and approve the associated development order and master development plan for approximately 1.42 acres located on the southwest corner of Atlantic Drive and US Highway 1792. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff at this time? Is the applicant here, and would you like to make a presentation?
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Sam Sabali. I'm the president of Florida Engineering Group. My address is 5127 South Orange Avenue, Orlando, Florida. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you this afternoon. I do have a presentation, but I believe your staff covered pretty much everything, the technical items related to the request. I do have some photographs showing the proposed building. Since it wasn't part of the staff presentation, I'll be glad to share them. Is it possible to?
We do have them
In essence, this request is basically, the use is allowed in the industrial zoning, and the main reason we are going through this process is because your comprehensive plan limits the floor-to-area ratio. So that's the main item which required us to go through the PD amendment and this process. The use is already allowed in industrial. The industrial allows a lot of other uses which are more heavy type industrial uses, such as warehousing and so forth. So we feel this proposed project would be, in keeping with the redevelopment in that area, and that it's pretty much a transition between heavy industrial use and commercial use. It will be a 3-story building, so I know your overlay is encouraging high-intensity type development, so it's in keeping with that. And with the redevelopment, we are proposing additional open space than the code requires, and we have the enhanced buffers. Currently, the site, especially on Atlantic Boulevard, it encroaches into the right-of-way. The parking is on Atlantic Boulevard, so we are cleaning that frontage up. So with that, let me, I'm going to skip. I do have with me the applicant representative, Jason Keenan, in case there are any questions. But this is the existing survey, and if you look the shaded area on the survey, That's where the current parking is for the little 500 facility. So that is going to be removed, and along the frontage, we're going to have the landscape buffer. This is kind of how the site looks today, just to give you an idea. I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with the site. This is looking northwest from 1792. This is the parking which I was referring to on Atlantic Drive, which will be removed, so that will become landscaping. I'm going to skip through some of these items, and you already addressed them. So
And the audio is the sound of cars on 1792 saying bye.
Page is flipping.
So this is how the facility will look. This is looking south from Atlantic. This is looking southwest, kind of from 1792. And this is looking west from 1792. The reason we had to step the building is because of the billboard and the line of sight to maintain that. With that, I'm going to open it up for any questions. I have a lot of information, but just keep it brief.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Zembauer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a lot of fine memories from this site. Would you consider putting a track on the roof? No, and I had heard that there may be some consideration that there may be, for display purposes, one of the original carts kept in the showroom. Is that correct or incorrect?
We've had these discussions, and I believe that's a correct statement. Cool. We tried to incorporate some elements of the existing little 500 into the actual architecture of the building, but that became very difficult to do that and maintain, the aesthetic of the building. We worked with the architect on that. We had several architectural plans. We wanted to be sensitive to where the site is and to the history of the site, but eventually the plan was to put a cart inside the building. But let the applicant address that more specifically.
It's certainly an iconic place that I think most of us have spent some time there as young people.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Kanan, one of two partners of Nouveau Development Partners. My address is 1680 Spruce Avenue in Winter Park. I myself grew up racing cars around there. My kids have had countless birthdays there. We were actually approached by the Klein family because after the matriarch and the patriarch passed away, the family itself was done operating the track. So they originally approached me to give them some advice on how to dispose of the track. Ultimately, we decided that it would be a great storage facility, one that my partner and I intend to keep within our families for generations. And so we developed a phenomenal relationship with the Klein family. Connie's become a good friend. So what we've done is we have a model car that's been refurbished, which will be displayed in addition to pictures of the family, original pictures of the track, and we'll have a lot of memorabilia within the office scenario.
Nice, thank you.
No, thank you.
Commissioner Constantine?
Yeah, Jason, stay there, please. Sure. Thank you, and I, like Commissioner Zembauer, very quick, my family owned the restaurant, Maryland Fried Chicken, across the street. And when I, was getting bored of making coleslaw at 13 years old, they would hand me money and say, go to the go-kart. We talked about this, in fact. And I would run across the 4 lanes of 1792, different time, and spend my afternoon doing that. And when we talked a long time ago, which, by the way, was the reason the question, it was before you applied. Right. And so, but just for cautious, I'm going to go back and revise I think even though I did not speak to you before you had applied for this, to change the ex parte, we talked about having the vehicle and everything in there, and I'm so glad that you're going to do that.
Yes, sir.
And the pictures and everything. But the second thing we talked about is the billboard, that you were thinking about taking the billboard down. I heard today now when we were talking that you were going to keep the billboard up. Is that?
Well, interestingly, when we contracted with the client family, the billboard, it was our understanding, was off of our property. It was only once we surveyed the property that we're buying that we figured out that the billboard was actually on the client family. So Clear Channel, I believe, has been paying rent to the neighbor for decades.
Oh, my God.
And the property is, the billboard is not on their property. So once we discovered that, the billboard is, we didn't even know that it was on our property. Now that it's on our property, it was our intention to leave it as is. We designed the building. Originally, we stepped the building so as to allow line of sight for a billboard that we weren't going to own. Now it appears that we'll own the billboard.
Congratulations.
So just to show the difference with PD right now, Paul, if we asked, we could ask them to take the billboard down as part of the zone. I'm not asking, but we could. This is just a practical example, correct?
Any conditions, yes.
Thank you.
Everything is on the table with the
All I want you to say is
PD.
yes. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Oh, my. Okay, so before we do any more trips down memory lane that may be necessary, as the district commissioner, I would entertain a motion for support.
Is there any public?
Oh, no, there was no public comment.
No public comment?
I'll move
Did
to
I-
approve.
Did I close the public?
I'll second that,
hearing?
Madam Chair.
Is there anyone?
No. Is there anybody who didn't fill out a form who would like to speak on this item? No. All right, we're going to close the public hearing.
Then I
Thank
was
you.
gonna ask
I
you.
give the attorney so much work. It is amazing. You earn your keep.
Madam Chair, I think there's a motion or.
Yeah, unless there are any more questions or anything, we could always do that after there's a motion and a second, which is kind of how we're supposed to do it, but.
I moved.
I second.
All right, motion by
Commissioner
Commissioner
Delary,
Herr, second by Commissioner Delary. Any more discussion or questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, you're very welcome. All right. Our next item is our county manager's report. And- Are we good? Okay. County manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and Commissioners. Just have one item under my report. If you remember, probably about a month ago, I think it was you, Madam Chairman, brought up E.E. Williamson. The paved trail or pathway that we have seen that was along E.E. Williamson Road. We have done some research on it. I just want to give a little update on this. I actually, when that issue came up to the board, and I started seeing some communication go back and forth from my office as well, from the neighborhood to your office and to others as well, I'm sure. I actually wanted to go out there and put eyes on it myself, and so I actually called Mr. Owens over the HOA Homeowners Association over there, and I met Mr. Dredge, our Public Works Director out there. I'd asked him to come with me to walk the site. So we did that. We walked the site. This project, I know, has been a long time coming, and actually it started, I think, pre-COVID, as I found out. After I walked the site, I didn't set up a meeting with Mr. Owens at the time, but he actually was walking his dog in the neighborhood when I was out there, so I actually got to speak to him while I was there as well. He was telling me about the history of the project as well. So I had our Public Works Department go back and look at the history of this and give me a chronology and exactly, what had happened. There's a lot of communication failures in this project, and we've seen that. As a county manager, I would tell you, when we don't do something right, I'm going to tell you, we didn't do something right. Not that they didn't, the staff didn't follow certain procedures or anything. It's just that and we could use COVID all day long if we want to about how we don't communicate. In this process is that honestly, I don't think the right hand knew what the left hand was doing. I will tell you the information that I was given. In the meantime, after I learned and researched it all, I'd actually assigned our deputy director, Tony Nelson, to the project to actually work with the HOA to, okay, let's come to an agreement, a consensus, because the neighborhood is not happy. And I'll tell you the reason why they're not happy is that DOT actually had a project, as you all know, over there in that same area. They did a trail over the bridge. They redid the bridge, all of that. Their trail is concrete. And then when we came to connect our trail in the neighborhood, we put asphalt, and then which connects to another concrete, trail. So understanding different, and I know Commissioner Delary and I have had conversations about roadway projects versus trail projects and things like that. So after we started looking at it, is that we definitely need to remedy this situation. And so after a couple weeks of discussing it, looking at it, seeing remedies, we are going to make a recommendation. I'm going to bring it back at the next meeting, but it would actually be replacing that asphalt to the concrete, make it right. We communicated that to the neighborhood, then we changed to asphalt, but we did communicate that. It actually even shows on our plans that when we first put this out there, it's supposed to be concrete. And so my recommendation is go ahead. We're doing some cost estimates now. We've got some preliminary numbers. Now we're refining those. So that's why I want to bring this to at the next meeting so you all can see all of that. So it'd be an agenda item for you. But the recommendation would be to remove the asphalt. We're actually, our Public Works Department, I give them a lot of credit, Mr. Nelson and his team. We can actually use those millings from the asphalt for future projects, so it's not a total loss, but we will replace it with the concrete that was promised out to the community, as well as I have our staff working with them on the landscaping plan. So that hasn't been fine-tuned yet, but I even talked to Mr. Owens right before the meeting, had Mr. Nelson talk to him. They're actually going to be meeting on the landscaping, which hasn't been done yet, so that's a good thing. However, there were big oak trees that were taken out of that whole area, so again, it just wasn't communicated. There wasn't a lot of stuff happening back and forth. So we're going to work on and remedying that throughout all of our projects throughout the county. But for this one, I just wanted to give you an update on this. I know your office has been bombarded about it. My office has as well. And so I wanted to go out there and look at it myself. And we've got the right team together. And they have my commitment that they're going to be working with the neighborhood as well, the HOA, as we move forward with this. But you're going to see this item come at the next meeting, but I just wanted to give you an update on that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? I want to say thank you for getting out there and meeting. I think a picture's worth 1,000 words, and when you actually get out there and see something on site, it's. I want to thank Patty from my office, who's been fielding a lot of emails. Yes, yay, Patty. Communication is a beautiful thing, and sometimes we don't get it right. But hopefully, and I know that there are some neighbors here that may want to speak under public comment, but hopefully there will be an opportunity. Next door has this has become a very hot topic on the Nextdoor app, and so hopefully there will be an opportunity to continue to update folks on Nextdoor so that everyone, because it's always easy to say, oh man, it's terrible, county's but rarely is there an update that, hey, the county's going to make it right. So hopefully there's an opportunity to do that. I'm not suggesting you should, I'm just saying, you could. So thank you very much for that. County Attorney's report?
No county attorney report at this time.
Okay, district reports, District 5.
Thank you, Chairman. The first one is an easy one, and we're doing this later than the appointment, so I'm asking for a resolution thanking Emily Hanna for her Parks and Preservation Advisory Committee work. We, at the time that I appointed her replacement, didn't have a way to communicate with her, but Brenda tracked it down, and we're going to do it.
Second.
Track her down?
So there was a motion from Commissioner Herr and a second from Commissioner Zembauer. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
I wanted to congratulate county staff on the work that was done for the Seminole County Veterans Appreciation Luncheon. It was amazing. It was really unbelievable to be in the room with 3 World War II veterans. I grew up with one, and to be in a room with 3 of them that are alive that was an amazing opportunity that I don't think I'll ever get again. For those of you who don't know, we're in the nuclear armament race of putting up medical facilities in all places in the country, and Central Florida, Seminole County, is no exception. Advent Health had their most recent ribbon cutting at the Lake Mary facility. This is adjacent to the freestanding emergency room and does bring a considerable amount of services to the community. The facility is beautiful, and I congratulate them on that grand opening. I also would like to again express my condolences to the Yarborough family on the loss of an amazing woman. And with that in mind, I would ask that I move to appoint as replacement for Miss Ima Jean, her son, Mr. J.W. Yarborough, to the agricultural,
Second.
he will laugh at that, Agricultural Advisory Committee.
Second.
So motion by Commissioner Herr, second by Commissioner Delary. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
That is it.
All right, thank you. District number 1.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And it was very sad that the loss of Miss Ameline Yarborough. I know that she's touched not just Geneva, Seminole County, Central Florida State in so many different ways. She will not be forgotten for many, many reasons. The services that they had this past week, including Saturday, was truly moving, and to see her legacy and hear all the things, it's truly moving. So I want to express our heartfelt sorrow for not just her family, but for the loss of such a great individual and truly a legend that will not be forgotten. So I also want to thank the individuals that were very involved in the Veterans Appreciation Luncheon. I've been involved with that for the past couple of years. I want to thank the County Commission for attending and supporting our veterans. I also want to thank the constitutional officers, as well as the Sheriff's Department, as well as the Board of County Commissioners. I want to thank Darren Gray for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. This past year, we focused on Iwo Jima. We had 2 individuals that were actually there during that engagement and that battle, and they spoke about their experience. We have one individual that lived in Oviedo. That was just amazing to see the video that staff put together. And then we also flew down an individual from South Carolina. And he told us many a times, not just during the event, but afterwards, that he has not seen an event like this put together in all his travels around the United States. The group of people that put this on really work hard. We've already started planning for next year. The theme that we've had in all the times that we've done it, it was World War II. We're going to stay there until we can't find anyone. We're talking about a couple different options. I don't want to spoil it because we haven't decided yet on the theme for next year. And a lot of hard work goes into it, and I want to thank all the individuals that participate. We also do a challenge coin. On one side of the challenge coin is the branches of the armed services, and on the other side of the challenge coin is the theme of the event, which was Iwo Jima and the raising of the colors at Mount Suribachi. We also, all the funds are raised by the committee, and I want to thank everyone that's associated with it. To go through and thank everyone individually, there's too many people to thank, but a lot of hard work goes into it, and we've already started planning for next year's event. So I wanted to thank everyone for their hard work. End of my report.
All right, thank you. District 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. April 27th, we, staff and our consultants, put on the Gee Creek Basin study, and it was held over at the community center in Castleberry, and I want to thank our staff for being there and all the help you gave the community. There was quite an interest, quite well attended, a lot of interest in that corridor between Castleberry and Lake Jessup. We've all heard the news of what's happened through that whole corridor. So I appreciate staff working with those residents and being so thorough, as well as our consultants, in helping those people understand how that process is going to work, and not to believe that it's going to happen overnight, but in constant communication. So I appreciate that. On May 2nd, I was invited to tour the UCF College of Medicine, and I would tell you, if you've not had the benefit of doing that, all I can say is wow. I mean, the technology that's been deployed at that School of Medicine, and the providers of instruments to the medical community have partnered with UCF, so they are beta sites for a lot of equipment, a lot of technology. It really is amazing, truly amazing. So I would encourage you, if you have not, make an appointment to get out there and tour that. Congratulations to Commissioner DeLaury and the rest of the folks that sit on the commission to put the Veterans Luncheon on. I won't go too deep into it. Concur. We're a rarity in that regard. That many places around Central Florida, and quite in fact the entire state, don't put anything on for their veterans like this at all. So it really speaks volumes to our community. Of course, Miss Imogene Yarborough, probably the last cattlewoman of our heritage and lineage here in Seminole County, of one of the last remaining cattle ranching families. Truly a loss, but truly a legacy that she leaves behind. And it was good to see my fellow commissioners there at the funeral. Also a reminder, Lake Jessup Drainage Basin Study is May 11th, 6 to 8 p.m. at Seminole State College Sanford Lake Mary campus. Look forward to any of you that desire to attend. I know a lot of you have interest in Lake Jessup and that whole drainage basin and how that's impacted. And other than that, District 2 is perfectly in good shape.
District 3.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to congratulate Commissioner DeLaury and everyone that did the Veterans Appreciation Luncheon. It was truly a wonderful event to attend. I also want to congratulate South Seminole Rotary Club at their Rising Achievers program. They gave away 16 scholarships, 2 for each one of the students in every one of our high schools. And a shout out also to SSC, Seminole State College, because then Gwen got up there and gave the 8 that were going to Seminole State an extra scholarship, or an extra dollars per their education. And so you understand, it's not just those that have achieved remarkable grades and outside activities. These are folks that, children that had to overcome considerable family and social and community issues. So it was just remarkable to see how well, in such a difficult situation, these students have achieved. And they were going everywhere. One was going to Stetson. I know that'll make...
Go Hatters!
A number of them were going to UCF also. I'll just use those 2 schools and go through that. I also wanted to congratulate Seminole, the Seminole School System Foundation. They had an appreciation reception for school donors, and I attended that, and I was it was really a nice event that they put on to thank those that have given money to the school system. I do want to tell you all that a couple of meetings ago, I mentioned to you about House Bill 239 and how that would have dire effects on them. It ended up that it would have been, if it had passed as they had it, $21.8 million impact on our budget for next year. Minor victory. It's only going to cost us $5.9 million. So keeping in mind that we're going through the budget system. That is certainly on the FRS, and specifically, most of that will be going to public safety employees, but it's across the board as far as the increase. They were, with $117 billion, they were giving away a lot of money, and it just happened to affect us a great deal, or us, all counties, a great deal. And speaking of also communications, I know that before we meet again, the OCP is going to have a board reception with our own county manager speaking at the Orlando Sanford International Airport. And Mr. Gray and I, along with Mr. Durr, attended a open meeting of the community in Rolling Hills last Monday, speaking of communications. And I will tell you that they, more than not, they understand the fact of why there hasn't been more done there, although, quite frankly, the course looks better than when it was open as a golf course. But still, they remember the pretty pictures that were given to them in the 18 and 19. But the biggest concern they had was, again, communications. And our county manager was there to, as we all were, to let them know that that will be alleviated, and that, in fact, in late June, early July, we will be having a meeting with them, going through some of what will happen. In fact, they were concerned when the timing was almost perfect, because we were just ready to give them what would be happening. I also, in speaking of losses, and I do also want to share my fellow members and my condolences to the Yarborough family. I could not attend the funeral, but I was at one of the viewings prior to that, and all of the events were, as I know and also heard, were very much attended, well attended, and in great deal of honor to a remarkable woman that I think we all really, truly appreciated and thanked for everything that she has done. But we also had a loss, and UCF will be celebrating the life of President John Hitt on the 15th at 2 o'clock at the Alumni Center on UCF campus. I just thought you'd all like to know. And the last thing is, if there's anything that you did want to know pretty quickly, tomorrow at 12 o'clock, the Florida Association of Counties will be having a legislative wrap-up on Zoom or, Zoom or telephone, and I know all of you have received emails to that effect, and if anybody does have anything that they would like to know about, that would be a good time to take a look at it. So with that, I have nothing else, and District 3 is doing very well also.
But not perfect, huh?
No, but nothing's perfect.
Commissioner Zembar?
Just, if I may, have a little latitude real quick with the county manager on the Rolling Hills topic. When we took the action on Rolling Hills, there was a promise made to the taxpayers that Jetta Point would be liquidated and made available to be sold. When you get an opportunity, is that something you could bring us up to date on?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, absolutely. Couple of items that I believe you were forwarded 2 letters from the City of Sanford, both from the Mayor Art Woodruff. One related to potential hotel development and courthouse repurposing, and the other related to the CRA
Yes, ma'am.
sunsetting. The one that I believe we maybe need to give some direction to the county manager on how to proceed relating to the disposition of the funds. I'll just read for the sake of the public this paragraph, or 2 paragraphs. Since the Heritage Park project is stalled, but the agreement extends until 2025, if the project does get started by 2025, the CRA funds will not be expended for the streetscape until near the end of the project. If Heritage Park does not proceed, we will not have time to reallocate the funds after the agreement expires in early 2025. The CRA term ends in late 2025. Because of this timing, the city would like to work with the county on an agreement to escrow and reallocate any funds designated for Heritage Park streetscape to be spent on similar projects within 2 years of the end of the CRA. If the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners is amenable to this, I suggest we have staff work together to outline an agreement. Please let me know how you would like to proceed. We're talking about $5.2 million.
I would make a motion that we allow our county manager to work with the city of Sanford, whether it's an escrowing or some other method, at least have the conversation of what works best, and then report back to our board.
With that, can I also add to also have the county attorney look at any legal ramifications, because it is a CRA?
Well, I would think that would happen simultaneously, but I'm fine with that.
I understand that, but that's not...
It's worth noting.
With that motion, I'll second it.
Commissioner Herr?
I just, from a process perspective, want to understand, now that we have a really strong county manager in place, would this not have happened without, I mean, you're in this communication.
Yeah.
So I'm bringing it up because it was directed to me as chairman. I felt like I needed to bring it to the board publicly because, frankly, I was getting my hair done the other day in downtown Sanford, and someone came up to me and asked me about this specific question, and so the community is discussing it while my hair is in foils, and I just figured it would, for the benefit of the public, it would be worth noting that we are talking about this, we are aware of the issue. We're going for transparency and all that good stuff.
I agree, because there is a process for originally when the CRA was initiated. So I'm fine with that. And I would trust that the county manager is wise enough to do whatever's necessary to work with our legal team or anybody else.
Well, that's where I am. I'm just asking from a process perspective.
Here's
So
the
I understand
process.
it's just-
The process is the chairman does not direct the county manager to do Jack Diddley. The process is this board directs the county manager. So just because I got a letter that said, please ask your staff to work on this, we have had issues in the past where individual county commissioners or chairmen felt that they had the latitude to direct the county manager, and that's just, I don't feel comfortable with that, so I want to be extra cautious that any direction that's given to the county manager comes from this board, not from me as the chairman.
So I think my confusion on it is that I thought it came in through Darren's office.
No.
Yeah, right. She said, I got a copy from the chairman.
Okay,
Yeah.
understood.
Yeah,
And so-
got it.
And I've already started working on it, so.
Great. Well, I didn't want it to appear that you were working on something at my direction.
No.
Okay,
Correct.
fantastic, thank
And
you.
just question, Jack Diddley?
Jack Diddley, man.
Did you really want to say something other than Jack Diddley?
I may have, and I may have stopped myself and chose Jack Diddley.
Good job.
Thank you.
I'll call the question.
It's called growth.
Yeah, right on.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. The item relating to the courthouse repurposing is something certainly that you all have. If we would like to ask the county manager, and I don't know that we need a motion necessarily for this, but if we want to ask the county manager to continue to work with the City of Sanford staff on this potentiality, we'll ask him to do that as well.
Please.
Okay, there's consensus
I'm
for
okay.
that. All right, fabulous. The I was going to call it Workforce Central Florida, Career Source Central Florida, our representative on that board is Commissioner Constantine, and there is a new, so if I misstate any of this, Commissioner Constantine, you please feel free to jump in and correct or augment what I'm saying. There is an additional seat that has been added to this board for the benefit of Seminole County. The airport would like for us to appoint Nicole Martz, the president of the airport, to serve in that capacity. I have a letter from Career Source and a letter from the chairman of the airport board, and of course Commissioner Zembauer sits on the airport board, asking that this board nominate her for that new seat.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I would only say that, the airport's got a lot of things going on right now, and it's starting to move in a different direction than it has historically. There's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of interest, a lot of excitement. I think it absolutely makes sense that Nicole Martz be nominated. I'm assuming they've cleared it with her, so I would support that.
I think we all know Nicole.
I just wonder what the process was to get to here.
Well, I received an email.
Not this process,
I
their
don't know what process.
Do we know what their process was?
Mr. Gray spoke with Ms. Neighbors this morning, not sure.
Yes, and so, yeah, I just wanted to get clarification on it as well. And there are business seats, if you will, that are on Career Source and that the county commission nominates. And it goes to their board to actually, I guess, to approve, to do the final approval. But you all will nominate them to the Career Source board. And right now, we have 3, and we're getting an additional one, a 4th one.
So this is a business seat?
Yes,
And we're
yes.
putting a government official in?
Yeah.
I
Yes.
just want to point that out.
Yes.
That's why I'm asking the question.
Well, I don't think they see her as a government official, as the president or CEO of the airport, but given especially the focus on workforce development and
Right.
the redevelopment of the property and
Right.
Their newest master plan's got a lot of things that would be helpful,
Right.
trying to bring aviation jobs in and training and that kind of stuff.
I
So-
get all that, and I support Nicole, and I support the airport, but the business community might think differently, and that's the piece of it and that's on Career Source to explain.
So another thing that Career Source can help us explain, and Mr. Gray is working on this as well, Seminole State College has an appointee to Career Source as well. Seminole State has expressed to me that they would like to trade out that appointee. There's some confusion about whether the college has the latitude to change out their appointee or whether that is a Board of County Commissioners' responsibility to change out. So when we get clarification on that,
Yeah, we'll bring
we'll let you know if it involves us or not. Not because the current person is not doing a great job, but there just seems to be better alignment with another person on staff to have in that role. So that's that. At the risk of, don't
At the risk
keep
of
your
being here-
pitchforks
the risk of being here in
that end
another
of
2
the
hours.
dais. We talked about our policy that relates to, yes, ma'am.
Sorry, you didn't call the vote for
Yeah, we didn't call the vote. There was a motion and a second.
I'm
on
so
Career
sorry.
Source.
I was moving on. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much, Charity. See, it takes a village. The future agenda item topic that came up at the very end of the last meeting, I really want to make sure that, and Mr. Gray, again, has already started working on this and looking at this, that the policy that we have in place reflects actually how this board wishes to operate, or that we scrap the part of the policy that we don't feel needs to dictate how we operate. So being a process-oriented person, I was feeling like I needed to follow a process that this board put in place. And you all know as well as I do, anytime this board wants to amend or change a policy that's completely within our purview, we have the ability to do that. So I'm going to give that as a homework item for all 5 of us to go and read that between now and our next board meeting, have some conversations with the county manager about whether we want to amend it, delete it, abide by it, and we can circulate that language if that's helpful between now and then. Then the other topic that is in the air, and last time when I mentioned the potential renewal of the penny sales tax, I said, we were up in the 60,000-foot view, but we needed to start bringing it down, closer. I'd like consensus from the board, if possible, to have conversations about this planned during our budget discussions. That it's going to be here very quickly. So we need to have the discussions. We need to have them publicly. Talking about our budget, our projected budget, seems like a logical time to do that. If there is a desire on the part of the board to have those at another time, I'm open to that as well. But I didn't want to spring anything on anyone as a part of those budget discussions. And where'd this come from? Yes, Commissioner Zembauer.
My opinion is we need to have that discussion sooner rather than later for any number of reasons. Budgetary, we have multiple partners in this process that need to be considered and brought into that loop. So I would 100% support, having the county manager develop a schedule, discussion process, not only with us, but our partners, with the chair, and just, it's time to get going, in my opinion.
Commissioner Herr?
I agree, and I would also say that as part of the budgeting process, we need to start thinking about if it passes, if it doesn't pass. We need to get pretty granular around the ideas of what gives, because we do end up losing either services or improvements as a result of losing that revenue. So I do think that's really important to understand.
I welcome the conversation, looking forward to having it. And then once we have that conversation, we'll give staff direction about what we want and how we want it.
Okay. Commissioner Constantine, are you good with that?
As was said already, sooner the better.
Okay.
Noted. I'll have it on the work session in June.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
But also with our partners, though, too, we need to start opening up that dialogue with our partners.
So we have had high-level conversations at mayors and managers. Mr. Gray has met with each of the city managers and the school board superintendent. So there have been some preliminary conversations. I think everyone is kind of waiting for us, the five of us, to have a public conversation and give direction. We're kind of the elephant in the room, if you will. I think that's all I have for my chairman's report and district report. We've dispensed with the future agenda item already. Public comment. Ms. Beach, do we have anyone for public comment?
We had several for the E.E. Williamson Trail, and I'm not sure if they are still interested in speaking.
I think they left.
They were so excited with the information they received, they decided they didn't need to speak anymore.
They're real
And
happy.
then we have other comment forms that did not indicate if they were for the trail or not, so I'll just call the names and if they're
Yep.
here. Okay. Mr. Hyde, Bill Hyde?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Bill Hyde, live at 2379 Audley Street in Oviedo. I came this morning of the workshop for the TDC and went home at the conclusion of the presentations because I didn't really think I needed to make any comments about it. And then I got home and I saw the parade on SGTV of people that want more of my tax money. So I am going to make some comments. $61 million for an indoor facility is a lot of money. I heard the cheerleading that, it's going to pay for itself, but immediately I was struck that the presenter didn't know it was $11,000 or $11 million. That kind of bothered me. It was a very polished proposal, but if you don't know the difference between 11,000 and 11 million, the devil's in the details on those kind of things. So that's the first thing that bothers me. The second thing that bothered me was buying the equestrian facility. I don't know how many $1 million that's going to cost. But y'all have been buying a lot of property lately. You've been buying golf courses, and now you want to buy the Yarborough property, and so on and so forth. So, that stuff comes off the tax rolls on golf, So, as a taxpayer, that bothers me that you're going to take more off the tax rolls. Having said that, if you are going to take that off the tax rolls, I'd rather see it go to the soccer fields, believe it or not, than spend that money on the Yarborough property. And the reason is because at least the kids will all get to play on the soccer fields. And if y'all take this piece of property out here, you're going to take it off the tax rolls, and we're not going to be able to use it. So if you're going to take $5 million from us, I'd rather see that. And the third thing that bothered me was almost everybody comes up here is talking about basketball, soccer, and all these sports, and it's a very, very youth-focused proposal all day long. I heard one mention of pickleball. One mention of pickleball. Us old folks pay all those taxes to pay for that $61 million, and we're not going to get to use the facility. Y'all got to do some head scratching, and you got to make this a little more equitable for those of us who pay the bills and have a lot of birthdays. Thank you very much.
Bill, I was actually going to bring up pickleball this morning, but I thought better of it. We were getting a little long in the teeth.
Someone said something about pickleball. I will say, Mr. Hyde, I think there may be some misconceptions, and I'll ask Mr. Gray to get with our team to make sure that we specify exactly where those funds are coming from. Commissioner Herr and others made it very clear that none of that $61 million would be a burden on current Seminole County property owners, taxpayers. So there is a funding mechanism through the first part of that discussion.
I did catch that, and by the way, the tourism...
Wait, come on back up to the microphone. We're gonna do this.
Okay. You want to I'm sorry. If the hotels and restaurants want to tax themselves into their own district, have at it. That's the American way. I like that.
That's right.
Okay. I really do think there's an important dialogue there for all of us to be a part of, so we're sure that we're communicating clearly through the process. So thank you for that. Who's next, Ms. Beach?
David Smith.
Mr. Smith. You were here earlier this morning and we made you come back. I'm sorry.
You didn't make me come back. Had a good time though, actually. Good afternoon, Chairwoman, Commissioners. I'm David Smith, 2424 Orange Avenue, Sanford, Florida. And I am here to express my concern over local government's involvement with a certain private nonprofit entity in regards to issues and topics that affect the community of Midway. I am also concerned over the various conflicts of interest that exist in regards to this entity acting not only as the sole liaison between the community and local government, the community of Midway and local government, but also being recognized in a pseudo-governing capacity to work in tandem with local government and private business interests at the expense of the community of Midway. I am concerned additionally about local government being involved in an organization that myself, as well as many other communities, members of the community of Midway, feel could be corrupt. So in closing, I want it to become a matter of public record that myself, as well as many other residents and members of the community of Midway, do not trust this organization. We did not elect, select, check any boxes, ballots, or any way choose to have this organization, nor its leadership's proposed representation of the wishes and wills of our community. In addition to that, we see local government and our elected officials' involvement and legitimization of this entity as a betrayal against our tax dollars and as a betrayal against democracy. That concludes my statement, and thank you so much for hearing me.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Commissioner Herr.
Mr. Smith, would you mind staying around just for a little bit? We are about to adjourn, and I would love to connect with you. Yes, you are in my district.
Are there any other speakers?
Just one more, Alexander Duncan.
All right.
I'm sorry, that was funny. Hey guys, my name's Alexander Duncan, P.O. Box 620095. No, 6292. Oviedo. Thank you. I didn't come to talk about these three things, right? But I gotta mention them. JW going to the Agriculture Board smacks of nepotism. Just had to put it out there. I wouldn't be me if I didn't. I'm an old Geneva boy myself, so they can, I love Imogene, them too, and God bless her. I just got to keep it 100. The airport board already bites. Okay, you guys need better people on it. Bentley, Smith, hold on.
No, Mr. Duncan, I'm so sorry. You may not have been here earlier when I read the rules for public comment, but we don't take comment about particular individuals in this community that may be...
Okay, well, the airport board needs to be improved.
So let me address that, Madam Chair, if I may, real quickly. We don't appoint
Appoint the
anybody
airport
to that board. That is the city of Sanford that controls the airport board.
I understand.
So that would be something that you should direct to the city of Sanford.
No, but y'all have a say in the airport authority. Let's not get it twisted. It's not solely the city of Sanford.
Yeah, we're going to let you go ahead and finish whatever
Thank you.
prepared comments you have, but please remember that this is not an opportunity to make disparaging comments about members of the community.
Well, I wasn't trying to disparage them as much as didn't Nicole come from here?
Mr.
She's
Duncan,
going to the airport board? I'm just saying it all smacks of nepotism. That's all I'm saying. Okay, in the penny sales tax, I really don't think we should even be taxed with the penny sales tax. I'm just saying. And what I really came to talk about was the sex offender ordinance 2005-41. And I'm just hoping, thank you for bringing it up last year, that you guys could get with the school board and the sheriff office, and we can finally address this for real. It does not include bus stops. It does not include recreation centers. It does not address the congregation of sex offenders in residential homes in those type of communities. I've been pressing this issue for years, and I'm gonna stay focused on it this year until we get it resolved. So that's really what my thing is right now. So I just said the other stuff because I seen it on the agenda, so whatever. But these sex offenders, and let me be clear, I want us to respect their constitutional rights and that they've paid their debt to society, because I believe in all the Constitution. But we have to find a balance, and I just feel like, and I'll just put it out there, that Midway's been bullied because it's a poor, minority, disadvantaged neighborhood, and I just want to address it. So I'm putting it on the table. I'll be back if I need to. I know you guys got a meeting about it coming up. Please keep me in the loop, kinda. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Commissioner Herr.
Just in the for the record category, we have convened a meeting. It will not be multiple commissioners because it's not coming before the board yet, but there is preparation work, including the county manager, representatives from the sheriff's office, the school district. There are about 10 people in the first meeting of what I would expect to be many to address not only the Midway situation specifically, that's our starting point, but in addition to that, to make sure that we're looking countywide to see what improvements we can make to protect the children of our community. So we appreciate you bringing it to our attention. Work is underway.
All right. Any other public comment?
Madam
All right.
Chair, before we leave, I just wanted to wish all the mothers of Seminole County Happy Mother's Day. It's coming up. And I myself no longer have my mom, but I want to wish you all a Happy Mother's Day. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else to come before the board? No? All right. We are adjourned at 3:20.